Scorpio, I know it hurt. I know that when it was over, when you lost that person, that situation, that opportunity, you felt like a piece of you had been ripped away. You cried, you wondered why, you blamed yourself, you wanted to go back in time and do things differently. You felt you had lost something precious, something you would never find again. And for weeks, maybe months, you carried that loss like a dead weight on your chest. But let me tell you something that will completely change how you see what happened. You didn't lose anything. You were saved. Is this what you call loss? It was the universe pulling you out of a trap before it completely destroyed you. It was life preventing you from investing more years, more energy, more of your heart in something that was slowly poisoning you. It was divine intervention pulling you off a path that led straight to an abyss. And I know it's hard to see that now, especially if the wound is still fresh. But I promise that by the end of this message, you will understand why what happened wasn't cruelty of fate. It was compassion. Are you ready to see the truth that your pain is still trying to hide from you? Are you prepared to acknowledge that what you so deeply regretted losing was exactly what needed to leave your life so you could finally breathe? Because once you see this clearly, not only will the pain lessen, you will feel such profound relief that you will wonder why it took you so long to see the deliverance you received. Scorpio, let's start from the beginning. That person, that situation, that relationship you think you lost, let's be brutally honest about what it really was. Not the idealized version you created in your head after it ended, not the potential you saw that never materialized, but the raw, naked reality of what you were experiencing day to day. Was it truly good, or were you constantly performing emotional juggling acts to keep things going? Think about the last few months before the end. Were you happy? Genuinely happy? Or were you just relieved in the rare moments when you weren't anxious, hurt, or confused? Did you feel valued? Or were you constantly proving your worth, justifying your place, fighting to be seen? Could you be yourself? Or were you editing parts of who you are to fit what was expected of you? The truth you need to face is this. You weren't thriving on what you lost. You were surviving, you were adapting, you were diminishing yourself. You were sacrificing pieces of your essence to maintain something that deep down you already knew wasn't sustainable. And the universe saw this. It saw you consuming yourself. It saw you losing your light. It saw you walking towards a version of yourself you wouldn't recognize anymore. And it intervened in the only way that would work, removing it from your life with or without your consent. For Scorpios born between October 23rd and November 2nd, this liberation came in the form of a relationship that ended. And you know deep down that that person never loved you the way you deserve to be loved. For those born between November 3rd and 12th, it was an opportunity that didn't work out. But if it had, it would have trapped you in a situation that would have suffocated your soul. And for those born between November 13th and 21st, it was an entire cycle of your life that needed to end. Friendships, environments, old versions of yourself, so that something genuinely new could begin. But you all share the same experience. You called what was liberation a loss. You cried for something that was hurting you. You missed something that was preventing you from growing. And now, at this moment, it's time to recognize the gift you received, disguised as tragedy. Scorpio, let me show you the signs you ignored because you were so invested in making it work. The signals your body was giving you, the constant anxiety, the knot in your stomach, the difficulty sleeping, the tension that never fully eased. Your body knew something was wrong. It was screaming for you to get out, but you interpreted these symptoms as intense love, as passion, as deep involvement, when in reality they were alarms that you were in danger. The signs your intuition was sending you, those doubts that arose out of nowhere, that inexplicable discomfort, that feeling that something wasn't right, even when everything seemed fine on the surface. Your Scorpio intuition, which rarely fails, was trying to warn you. But you stifled those inner voices because you didn't want to believe you had invested so much in something that wasn't what it seemed to be. The signs that others showed you, Friends expressing concern, family questioning your choices, people around you seeing what you refused to see because you were too close. You dismissed them as envious, as people who didn't understand, as unnecessary interference. But some of them truly saw something that you, blinded by hope, couldn't perceive. And above all, the signs that the situation itself gave you. The inconsistencies, the contradictions, the broken promises, the patterns that repeated themselves no matter how much you tried to change them. You saw these signs. You registered each one of them. But you kept giving chances, believing in change, hoping that this time it would be different. Until the universe, tired of seeing you ignore all the warnings, simply took it away from you all at once. And it hurt. Of course it hurt. Because you weren't just losing that. You were losing all the hope and energy you had invested. You were losing the story you had built in your head about how things could be. You were losing the future version you had planned. But here's what you didn't realize at the time. You didn't lose a real future. You lost an illusion, and losing an illusion, however painful, is always a gift. Now let's talk about what really happened when you lost that. In the first few weeks, you probably felt an immense emptiness, as if you had lost not just something external, but a part of yourself. And in a way you had. You had lost the version of yourself that was willing to settle for crumbs, the version that accepted being treated as an option instead of a priority, the version that sacrificed its own needs to keep the peace or keep someone around. But as time passed, something began to happen. You started breathing more easily, sleeping better, feeling a lightness you hadn't felt in months, maybe years. At first, you may have even felt guilty about this relief, as if you shouldn't be feeling so good so soon. But that relief was your body and soul finally relaxing because the danger had passed, because you had escaped. And then you started noticing things, how you had more time for yourself, how you had more energy to invest in things that truly mattered to you. How you were no longer spending hours trying to decipher ambiguous messages, analyzing inconsistent behaviors, or emotionally contorting yourself to make something impossible work. You had your life back, your energy back, your peace back. And slowly you began to realize this wasn't a loss, it was a recovery. Scorpio, what you called a loss, was actually the universe returning to you everything you had given to something that didn't deserve it. Your attention, your loyalty, your depth, your capacity to love intensely. All of that was being wasted, thrown away on something that not only didn't value you, but was actively harming you. And when that ended, you recovered all those precious resources to invest in something that is truly worthwhile. Yourself first, and eventually in people and situations worthy of what you have to offer. Now I want you to do a mental exercise with me. Imagine if it hadn't ended. Imagine if you were still there, in that situation, with that person, in that environment. Where would you be now? Would you be happier, more fulfilled, more yourself? Or would you be an even more diminished, more exhausted, more lost version of who you are? Be honest with yourself. If it had continued, would you be better or worse off than you are now? The answer, if you're brutally honest, is that it would be worse, much worse. Because those situations don't improve with time when the foundations are rotten. They deteriorate. They slowly corrode you until you wake up one day and no longer recognize yourself. Until you look in the mirror and see a stranger who used to be you, but who sacrificed so much of themselves that almost nothing of their original essence remains. What you call loss saved you from that fate. It prevented you from wasting more years of your life on something that would never become what you needed it to be. It protected you from becoming an unrecognizable version of yourself. It rescued you before it was too late for you to fully recover. This wasn't loss. It was a deliverance in every sense of the word. And here's something you may not have realized yet. What came after the loss proves it was a blessing in disguise. Look at the opportunities that arose because you were finally available. Look at the genuine connections you were able to form because you were no longer trapped in something that consumed you. Look at the personal growth you experienced because you finally had the space and energy to focus on yourself. Look at the peace you found when you stopped living in constant tension and anxiety. All of these things were only possible because what you thought was essential left your life. If it was still there, you wouldn't have any of this. You would still be trapped, still fighting, still sacrificing yourself for something that not only wasn't giving you what you needed, but was actively robbing you of everything you deserved. The ending, the closure, the loss, that's what made room for all the good that came after. Scorpio, one of the reasons it took you time to see this as a liberation is because you have a fierce loyalty. When you commit to something or someone, you commit completely. And that's a beautiful quality, but it can become your own trap when you direct that loyalty towards things that don't deserve it. You were loyal to what you lost. So loyal that you kept fighting for something that was already dead. So loyal that you ignored all the signs that you needed to leave. So loyal that your own loyalty became the prison from which the universe had to forcibly free you. But now you've learned something crucial. Loyalty without reciprocity is self-sabotage. Commitment without mutual respect is voluntary imprisonment. Love without honor is just a beautiful fantasy that keeps you trapped in an ugly reality. And you don't have to live like that anymore. You've been freed not only from that specific situation, but from all the patterns that led you to accept less than you deserved in the first place. The deliverance you received wasn't just physical, getting out of that situation. It was also mental and emotional. It was a liberation from all the limiting beliefs that made you think that was the best you could have, that you didn't deserve more than that you should be grateful for the little you received, that love means infinite sacrifice even when there's no reciprocity. All those lies were exposed when it ended, and you realized that you not only survived without it, you thrived. Now let's talk about the future you gained by being liberated, because that's what truly matters. Not what you lost, but what you gained. And you gained far more than you lost, even if it doesn't seem that way during moments of longing or nostalgia. You gained the freedom to rediscover yourself, to explore who you are when you're not constantly adapting to the demands and expectations of a situation that didn't serve you, to experience new things without having to justify or explain them, to follow your intuition without being questioned, to prioritize your own needs without guilt. This freedom is infinitely more valuable than the false security that situation offered. You've gained energy that is no longer being drained, energy that can be invested in yourself, in your dreams, in your passions, in genuine connections, in experiences that truly nourish you. Think about how much energy you spent trying to make that work, trying to communicate your needs that were never met, trying to understand behaviors that didn't make sense, trying to sustain something that was fundamentally unsustainable. All that energy is now yours again. You've gained clarity about what you truly want and deserve, because nothing clarifies your expectations and standards like going through something you didn't deserve. Now you know exactly what you won't tolerate. You know which red flags you'll no longer ignore. You know what kind of reciprocity and respect needs to exist for you to invest your precious energy. This clarity will protect you from repeating the same mistakes in the future. You gained strength you didn't know you had, the strength to survive what you thought you wouldn't survive, the strength to rebuild yourself when you thought you were destroyed, the strength to keep going when it would have been easier to give up. This strength is yours forever now, and it will serve you not only in future relationships, but in every challenge you face for the rest of your life. And you gained space, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual space for something new to enter, something that truly deserves to occupy that space in your life. Because while you were filled with what was wrong for you, there was no room for what was right to arrive. The universe couldn't deliver what you truly deserved because your hands were busy holding on to something that needed to be let go. Now your hands are free, your heart is free, your life is free, And that means you are finally ready to receive what is truly meant for you. Scorpio, I know there may still be days when you feel nostalgic, when nostalgia paints that situation in prettier colors than it actually was, when you ask yourself, what if? But in those moments, I want you to do something. Remember not the best version of that situation, but its truth. Remember how you really felt most days. Remember what made you cry, doubt yourself, question your own worth. Remember how much you were sacrificing and receiving so little in return. And then compare that to where you are now. Compare the peace you have today with the constant turmoil of before. Compare the freedom you feel now with the prison you didn't realize you were living in. Compare the version of yourself that exists today, stronger, wiser, more selective, more protected, with the version that existed in that situation. And realize that there is no comparison. You haven't lost anything. You've gained everything. You've gained yourself back. The deliverance you received wasn't just about getting out of a bad situation. It was about being redirected to your true path. Because while you were stuck in that, you weren't in the right place for the right blessings to arrive. You were in a dead end, investing in something that would never take you where you needed to be. And the universe, in its infinite wisdom, saw this and intervened. Yes, it hurt. Yes, you suffered. Yes, you went through a period of grief and confusion. But on the other side of that suffering, you emerged transformed. Not broken, but rebuilt stronger and more beautiful. Not diminished, but expanded in awareness and self-discovery. Not defeated, but victorious for having survived and thrived despite everything. So stop calling it a loss. Stop lamenting something that was harming you. Stop idealizing a situation that was actually toxic. It's time to rename that experience for what it truly was. A deliverance, a salvation, a gift from the universe that seemed cruel, but was compassion. A surgical removal of something that was slowly poisoning you before it became fatal. And it's time to be grateful. Not grateful for the suffering, but grateful for having escaped. Grateful for not having wasted more years of your life. Grateful for having been forced to leave before it was too late. Grateful for the lessons you learned. Grateful for the strength you developed. Grateful for the clarity you gained. And above all, grateful for being free to finally live the life you truly deserve to live. Scorpio, you have been saved, whether from someone who didn't deserve you, from a situation that didn't serve you, or from patterns that kept you trapped. You were ripped from something that seemed comfortable, but was suffocating. Something that seemed like love, but was toxic dependence. Something that seemed like an opportunity, but was a trap. And now you are free. Free to be who you truly are. Free to choose what you truly deserve. Free to live without the chains you didn't even realize you were wearing. This wasn't a loss. It was the greatest gift you could have received. And the sooner you accept this, the sooner you can fully enjoy the freedom and possibilities that are now available to you. Because your real life, your true life, the one you were meant to live, is waiting. And it could only begin after what was wrong was removed from your path. Share in the comments simply, it was a blessing in disguise. You don't need to explain what or who. Just highlight this shift in perspective, this release from the victim narrative to the realization that you were saved. This transformation from mourning a loss to celebrating a liberation. Subscribe to the channel now, because I'll continue showing you how to transform every painful experience into wisdom, how to recognize deliverance even when it disguises itself as loss, how to use every ending as the beginning of something better, how to protect yourself from repeating patterns that no longer serve you. Turn on notifications so you don't miss content that will keep you conscious, strong, and free. This is your moment of total liberation, Scorpio. The moment where you stop seeing yourself as a victim of loss and begin to see yourself as a survivor of something that could have destroyed you but didn't. Where you recognize that the universe was on your side all along, even when it seemed to be against you. Where you finally understand that everything that leaves your life makes room for something better to enter. You didn't lose. You were saved. You were freed. And now, finally free, you can begin to live the extraordinary life that was always your destiny.